Possessor. So this movie is directed by the son of David Cronenberg, legendary Canadian filmmaker. Son's name is Brandon Cronenberg, and this is his directorial debut. David Cronenberg, we all know from the movies like The Fly. We know him from Eastern Promises, History of Violence, Dead Ringers, Naked Lunch. The list goes on and on. Classic filmmaker here. And we've seen sons of directors trying to take the helm. Recently, we've had the movie Morgan, which was directed by Ridley Scott's son, Luke Scott. And that movie was met to mixed critical reception. Here we have a similar situation. However, this movie is getting a bit more buzz than the movie Morgan. So, what is this movie about? Basically, you have this technology in the future that allows people to beam into other people's consciousness, and an assassin is hired to kill the CEO of a major business. So that's the premise of the movie. Very reminiscent of something like Inception. The whole movie kind of gave me an Inception mixed with Under the Skin vibe. So if you like either one of those movies, you should try watching this movie. Before I give my review on the movie, I just want to talk to you guys about how I particularly watch more abstract films. Because I have so many friends and I've recommended abstract film to them. And not necessarily abstract film, but just films with a weirder narrative. I've recommended that kind of movie to friends, and they're just like, what the fuck is this? I don't get it. How do I personally watch these kind of movies? I look at the first scene and the last scene. And those are generally explaining what the movie is trying to say. I study sciences, and we're always taught that in scientific papers, your introduction has the main point of the article, and then the body of your article just explains your hypothesis, and the conclusion, you just wrap it up and you make that point again. That, to me, is, I look at films with that same structure. The first scene is the thesis of your article, while the last scene is reflective of that as well. So I look at the first and the last scene, and then I put the pieces of the puzzle together for the body of the film. I just thought I'd tell you how I watch these kind of movies and why I enjoy them. So to me, this movie is a lot about this character's anxiety between her work life and her family life. We're introduced to this character, and her boss, played by Jennifer Jason Leigh, is a little anxious that she might be too emotionally attached to her family. And not only that, but the character is starting to have some PTSD because her job is starting to get to her. And slowly throughout the movie, you're watching this character becoming more and more detached from her personal life and more cemented into her work life. And the whole movie is her struggle between her personal and her work life, the PTSD that comes with a job like that. So it's a very interesting movie to me. Movies that have a message that I can kind of hang on to makes me more apologetic for some weirder, more abstract decisions that happen, because it makes me have at least an interpretation of it. The worst thing an abstract movie can do is basically just be weird for weird's sake without really having a point. I remember a few years back watching the movie Holy Motors, and that's a bit of an example of that. The movie has a lot of weird stuff going on, but I don't feel like there's a point. This movie, Possessor, definitely has its fair share of weird things going on, but it really does have a point. And thankfully, you can just hang on to that point and try to piece the movie together. And you know what? When you watch these movies, you might have a different interpretation when you watch it. That's cool. That's like what makes abstract film cool, in my opinion. Like, people walk out with different interpretations. That's the interpretation I got out of it. So yeah, I like the whole concept of the film. Concept aside, all the performances here were pretty good, with some slight criticisms I'll get into later. The cinematography is very beautiful, and you can tell this movie was directed by the son of Cronenberg. Very gory film. Right off the first clip of the film, you see someone putting a needle into their brain. Very graphic. When someone gets shot in this movie, it's shown in graphic detail. Eyes coming out, teeth coming out, stuff like that. I enjoy violence in my movies. They really, like, seeing violence puts me on the edge of my seat. And this whole movie had me on the edge of my seat. I never knew where it was going to go next. But even the gore aside, just the cinematography and the aesthetic itself, I thought was really nice. There's some beautiful sequences in here as well. When the first time we see the character beam into someone else's consciousness, like we see her melting and morphing, and then it was really a cool scene to watch. And I think it was all done with practical effects too. It really showed anyway. It might have been CG, but it looked very tangible anyway. Sequences like that, montages, some really hot sex scenes in here. Oh, nah, but I'm a sucker for a good sex scene, what can I say? But yeah, everything in this movie was very beautiful. It reminded me a lot of the movie Annihilation, which is another movie starring Jennifer Jason Leigh. Had the same tone, same vibe, same weird, creepy horror mix in there too. There's some really disturbing scenes in this movie. Most notably, the poster you might have seen has the guy wearing a weird mask on it. That sequence in the film was pretty creepy and eerie. As far as criticisms with the film, I thought the dialogue was delivered a little monotone. Whenever I watch these sci-fi movies, like Annihilation, I had a similar problem. The delivery is very much like this. We have to make it as mysterious as possible. I never understood that. You can make an equally terrifying movie and have the characters actually act. I just felt like everything was a little too muted in this film, which might be a directorial decision and might be a thematic choice. I couldn't help but kind of like get disinterested when some of these characters are delivering dialogue. As far as like a sci-fi concept goes, this isn't anything wholly original. It's not like a game changer, and especially in a world where we have Black Mirror, which is releasing almost every year, which deals with very interesting premises. And even movies like Ex Machina and Annihilation, this movie isn't really pushing the envelope as far as weird sci-fi concepts go. The bulk of this movie is really that theme and that struggle the character is going through. So if you're going in expecting like, oh, I wonder what weird sci-fi technology premise they're coming up with now, this isn't really the film for it. But on that note, I thought this was a very enjoyable film. It's the best movie I've seen in 2020, which isn't saying much because 2020 is a bit of a crapshoot because of coronavirus. Also, I reviewed another David Cronenberg movie. I'll tag that up here. I reviewed Rabid for the Garage Zombie-thon, which that was a good movie as well. But I'm really interested to see where Brandon Cronenberg's career goes next. I wonder, is he going to continue in his father's footsteps, or is he going to try to break out of that mold? I'm really curious for that. But as far as this film goes, I think this is a good step in the right direction, a good first attempt. There are some flaws. Like, it's not a perfect movie. I just thought this was a very well-done film. And I haven't seen a recent film that was this tight in a while. It might be slow to some, not gonna lie. It's definitely a slow burn film. But I had no problem because I thought that character dynamic going on was interesting, and I never knew what to expect next. And the visuals also kept me invested. Taking all that to account, I think this is like a 7 out of 10 film. This movie is getting mixed reviews. Not like bad mix, just like some like it, some don't. I think it's a bit of it depends on if this is your kind of movie. It doesn't spoon feed you the information. You have to interpret shit on your own. It's not really meant for general audiences. But yeah, I watched this movie because first of all, it's Cronenberg's son. Second of all, the poster was scary. I actually didn't watch the trailer to this movie. And third of all, I wanted to encourage Canadian cinema because I'm a Canadian. Good old Canadian boy here. It's my Don Cherry impression. I'm Don Cherry. Oh, fuck, I can't do it. I'm sorry. My brother does a really good Don Cherry impression. I suck at it. But yeah, interesting movie. 7 out of 10. Go and watch it. Put your interpretation in the comments below.